It is 2020, and what is the most 2020 thing that could potentially take place in a presidential election? Refusing to concede. Something that has never happened within the context of my lifetime. In fact, the concession stuff is one of those things that are almost automatic. It happens whether they don't necessarily like to drag that out. Yes, Bush v. Gore in the Supreme Court takes, but all things being equal, concessions tend to be the norm. Trump, angry that his presidency was delegitimized by the Russiagate stuff, turns around and does the same thing to Joe Biden. Whether you want to call it revenge, whether you want to call it repudiation, whatever you want to call it, that is basically what's taking place. Trump has refused to concede despite the fact he lost Electoral College and the popular vote. How do you explain, then, not conceding? Voter fraud. Ubiquitous, all over the place, voter fraud. Russiagate 2.0. But this was so harebrained and so over the top that Trump had to disassociate and distance himself from his own lawyer because of the harebrained stuff she was out here saying on television, looking another human being in the face and saying it. I'm going to show you evidence, A, that this is Trump's lawyer, B, she was on his team talking at the press conference, and C, she's a bit of a lunatic. Welcome to the Soapbox. And of course, I'm talking about Sidney Powell. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. Look, I have to say it. Everybody should have a friend like Rudy Giuliani. Everybody should have that ace coon that you can call up and say, Rudy, I got to buy you in the trunk. Don't ask any questions. And Rudy will be there with his car, ready to take you to wherever you need to go to get rid of that body. Because I don't know how else to describe the level of camaraderie, friendship, of cash. I don't know. For Rudy Giuliani to get on one television set after the next and look as crazy as he has been looking, burning his reputation, if such existed, for one Donald Trump. When you have Chris Christie, previous Trump henchman that stood behind Trump looking crazy for like 15 minutes, when even he comes out and is like, yeah, this looks embarrassing, then you've gone over the edge of embarrassment, jumped the shark into outright patheticness. But even Trump, even Giuliani, has his limits. And apparently those limits have been reached by one Sidney Powell. Just to nail this down for the moment, this is the press conference that Rudy Giuliani threw, waving affidavits in the air and all of this other stuff, despite the fact that these guys are not necessarily making any headway in court. Let's take a look at this real quick. I just want to nail down Exhibit A, Giuliani, Powell, press conference about Trump.
In voter fraud. I'll let Sidney describe that to you.
Thank you, Rudy. What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States. The Dominion voting systems, the Smartmatic technology software, and the software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez to make sure he never lost an election after one constitutional referendum came out the way he did not want it to come out.
Now, let's stop here for a moment, because I think you can get an idea on where this is going. Hugo Chavez's ghost, Maduro, apparently, likely China. They're not certain about that one, but likely China's probably has something to do with it. And of course, Cuba. They're, doctors and apparently voting systems. Astonishing. So, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, working on the same stage, talking about Donald Trump. You can't disown her. You can't say, I don't like the girl with the skinny legs, when she's coming around and she's saying that she's your girlfriend. In this very specific case, you have Sidney Powell on that stage with Rudy Giuliani talking about Trump. Now, here is that same Sidney Powell on the phone talking to this news organization. Now, listen for what Sidney Powell says, and I suspect this is the call where they said too much. Too much. Even Giuliani, too much. Too much. Too much. Yes, I hope you bury a body. No, I can't stand by and let her say that. Even this was too far. Come on, come on, come on. And what is this? I think this is Newsmax, if I'm not mistaken. This is somewhat of a right-wing channel in general, but keep in mind, right? All of this has to do with the presidency of the United States. They're arguing ubiquitous voter fraud. And they're arguing that it was voter fraud to such a degree that all of these factors, China, Venezuela, Cuba, joined forces somehow to work with, I guess, elements of the Democratic Party in order to screw with the voting systems to get Joe Biden elected. That's the hypothesis. A lot of moving parts. Not much of it is true. This is her. And this is when she got disowned after this interview.
Let me ask you about the state of Georgia. Obviously, yesterday, the governor there, he certified the election for Joe Biden. It's about 12,000 votes. And what you see, will Georgia switch?
Yeah, that's a total farce. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Just to clarify, you're saying...
No. Just pause for a moment. This woman is representing the president of the United States, and she is claiming ubiquitous voter fraud. She invoked China, Cuba, Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, Maduro. Now she's saying that the Republican governor of the state of Georgia is in on it, on the conspiracy to get Joe Biden elected and to steal the election from Donald Trump. On top of that, she also added in the CIA for good measure, because she's a Republican, right? And apparently socialists can't build stuff like that. And so, of course, somebody else had to design it and build it for the socialists. Come on. Do we really need to push back on this? Like, honestly, think about what's being said here. There's nothing to show for this. They've had all day in court, meaning all of the money in the world. He's a president of the United States. He calls himself a billionaire. There's all sorts of cash that he has at his disposal. He has yes men like Giuliani that don't necessarily care about his reputation or, for that matter, little self-esteem or shame. So he can get out there and make that argument. And this person who's invoked like 5 or 6 different items and people who's involved in this conspiracy to stop Donald Trump from getting elected. After this, and by the way, this is not finished. There's a minute more crazy left into this. But after this video, Trump said, no mas. Done. This was the bottom of the barrel. This was the moment where the alcoholic with needles hanging out of his arm and the bloodstains, and he's vomiting on his lips and he's just laying there. That's what that moment is. That's the moment that even Trump says, too much. And do you know how far you had to go to get Donald Trump to back away from you saying too much? This woman is such an embarrassment. I can't even be seen close to her. And tried to disown her. Let's play the rest. I want to see where she's going with this. She invoked the CIA.
Governor Kemp, who's been a longtime ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit in the conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that, and it would warrant an investigation if anybody were actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about it?
She is accusing the Republican governor, Trump supporter in Georgia, of being in on a scam to get Joe Biden elected. And she said, we've seen evidence of that. Well, look, you're going to take that evidence into a court of law. And God, I hope the state of Georgia, if possible, or at the very least Kemp, sues the hell out of you. You've basically implicated him in a crime to undermine American democracy. This is a treasonous activity of what you're accusing him in. I mean, my point is, this is not a minor thing. This is basically her saying that Brian Kemp was involved in stealing an election from Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Yeah, that's a big charge. And I really honestly hope he sues the hell out of you for libel on that. I mean, the question becomes, does it damage his reputation? I know there are legal aspects of that. But this is astonishing that she's saying this with a straight face to other human beings that are listening to her with, with a certain degree of fairness. And I don't mean fairness, I just mean like, if a person tells you that, it looks like you would be pretty skeptical of that until they can give you something that's a little bit more substantial than their word. After this interview, Donald Trump campaign put out this. Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own. She is not a member of the Trump legal team. She is also not a lawyer for the president in this personal capacity. Rudy Giuliani, attorney for Trump, and Jenna Ellis, Trump campaign senior legal advisor and attorney for President Trump. Now, the reason that I showed you this video first is because I wanted to nail down that she was an attorney for Trump. She is standing on the stage with Rudy Giuliani. And she was advocating for basically what Giuliani was saying, because Giuliani called on her to step in that spot to give that crazy talk to the American public. Meaning, if that wasn't his lawyer, then why is Giuliani giving her the podium in order to talk crazy to the American public? And then when she does let that crazy flag fly, how do you kick her? Get fuck away from us. Get away, get away, get away, get away, get away. Look, I'm not going to keep it long. I just thought this video, I saw this and I'm like, they're just kicking that woman away like that woman wasn't necessarily part of their team. Own it! Own it! She's part of your team, buddy. And she's going out there talking about Hugo Chavez's ghosts and Maduro and maybe the communist China. And of course, Cuba and their fucking doctors. Working with the CIA and Brian Kemp. Undermine democracy for Donald Trump. They all wanted to fight him. They all wanted to take him out of that office. Yeah, this is stupid on stilts. And honestly, when you get to the point where even Donald Trump himself thinks it's too much, you've flown off the deep end. Like, share, and subscribe.